Cowboys plus 110 to win the division. I'm going to say right now, Marcus, I like this. Minus 2.5 versus the Packers. So are we talking about a potential Taysom Hill, Jordan Love situation here? And how do you handicap? Me neither, by the way. How do you handicap a game with so much unknown, really, for both of these teams at quarterback?
All right, so let's think of it like this. If Rodgers is playing in this game, what does that line look like? Because this game is in New Orleans. Saints are actually pretty good at home to start the year. Is it a pick 'em? Is Green Bay favored? What do you think?
Well, I think so. And I'm wondering how, if you're the odds makers, are you baking in a security blanket here that there's a possibility he's not there? Yeah. So the line would maybe move 2.5 points if we didn't have this drama. Saints home field, by the way, if you have a rookie, or I shouldn't say a rookie quarterback, or a young quarterback getting its real first taste of that seasoning, not ideal, by the way, assuming that we have fans there. So,
that's the other thing is that if we have fans, and it sounds like from everything I'm hearing that the NFL is going to be full capacity.
Yep.
That is going to be a nightmare first start for Jordan Love, because not only is it going to be really loud in there, that Saints defense is good. So that's a pretty rough situation. Even if Rodgers is playing, Rodgers hasn't always played well in that stadium either.
I don't know what to do with this. I think you have to wait and see, because certainly if you like the Saints right now, if you like the Saints right now, you might as well pounce. But if you look at the odds on where Rodgers is going to play next year, the Packers are still the favorite, slight favorite. You've got, the lines are moving around there.
If Jordan Love is starting this game, that line isn't going to be 2.5 for the Saints.
What would it be?
It's going to be probably 6.5, 7.
That's where I'd go to.
At least.
Yep.
So you're probably better off jumping on the Saints right now at minus 2.5. I think that's pretty good value right there.
I know this is kind of an aside, but are we still under the impression that Rodgers will not be there? Like, this line is just this purgatory line of not knowing which way to go because of where they are. To me, obviously there's a chance, and it's really hard to get wind of this because Rodgers largely plays things close to the vest, and the things that you hear, he is allowing you to hear. Like, these things are coming out. Yeah. So I would kind of lean the Saints here, Marcus. I know that quarterback situation could be rough, but based on the unknown in the Packers, even if Rodgers does play, this is, like you mentioned, it's like a safety net, because the moment there is a trade or wind of the trade, this line's going to move, and it's going to move fast.
Yeah, we just changed the name of this podcast to Take the Points, and we're already taking a favorite with our first pick. So,
take the chalk.
But I agree with you. Take the chalk. I agree with you. I think the Saints are just a smart bet right now.
All right, Bucks at Pats, week 4. Bucks minus 3.5. You gave me a little bit of a tease earlier when you said, I don't think it's going to be a great game. I'm just here for the awkward Belichick mask rearrangement and just the I don't even think the sideline shots will be any different. He always looks pretty miserable, right? And the handshake, which they'll have like 38 cameras on. What say you about the game itself? Bucks minus 3.5. I got to be honest, it looks pretty juicy right now to me.
Yeah, I think it needs to be closer to 6.5. I just think Tampa Bay is the far more talented team. Who knows what New England's quarterback situation is going to look like in week 4. Again, that wide receiver core, I think, is the worst in the NFL. Brady is going to be extra jazzed for that game. And I think it's going to be one of these ones, Adam, where if Tampa Bay wins, they don't win by a field goal, right? This is a total, hey, we're going to blow out New England. We're going to be throwing it when we're up 30 points in the fourth quarter. 3.5 seems far, far too low for me.
There were so many opt-outs, right, last year for New England, so they'll get a lot of those guys back. Of course, free agency, they went a little wild signing folks. To me, the problem is quarterback still, right? Like, you can't really feel good about this knowing that it's Cam, right? That's the problem. I think New England's going to be a little, probably considerably better with just the sheer amount of bodies that are all pretty good in a lot of places. But I think Cam in this is just, that's where I struggle to see this thing through from you're right. Take the points. Not great kickoff here as we're just pounding the chalk. But that's where I really struggle to kind of visualize New England being competitive in this game.
And I also would like to say New England has completely reshuffled their offensive line this year. It's going to take them a couple months to get into a rhythm. They've got a new right tackle. We'll see what happens with Isaiah Wynn on the left side. They lost Joe Thuney to the Chiefs. That offensive line might not be able to protect Cam against that pretty ferocious pass rush.
All right, let's go. Let's go now. Season component. We have the schedule here. Let's talk Steelers. Pretty much considered to have one of the most difficult schedules, if not the most difficult schedule in the league. When you look at the division, how good the teams are around it, some of the out of division games, it's tough. The odds right now to make the playoffs plus 180. Marcus, what say you with the Steelers?
I think there's a lot of value in the Steelers to make the playoffs. I know the first game of the season is tough at Buffalo, but I think the rest of the way, at least early on in the season, is pretty favorable. They get the Raiders coming off a Monday night game playing at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Those teams have typically lost, I believe, like 87% of those games traveling to the West Coast or traveling to the East Coast. They'll play the Bengals. They'll play maybe the new look Packers. They've got Chicago, Detroit. There's some pretty easy games in there. So if they can get to, I think, 10-7 with probably the number one ranked defense and an offense that finished inside the top 15 last year, I do think they're a good bet to make the playoffs. And plus 180 is a lot of value, and I'm taking it.
I'll say this. If you have that bet, the final 3 games are fascinating where you may be sweating that out, which is at Chiefs versus Browns, at Ravens, right? I mean, that is –
you're hoping it doesn't come down to those last 3 games, right?
You are hoping that you don't need to win out. And that may be the case. I think they're one of the more complicated teams this year, Marcus, for me. Like, because I like Najee. I did a video for the game day this week on who I think is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think it's going to be Najee Harris. I think the guy's going to be by the way, we're getting into fantasy season, which I know is near and dear to you. Yeah. Najee Harris got to be up there, man, because that guy is going to get a lot of touches for them very, very soon.
Yeah, and I think Najee is going to help their offense be a little bit more consistent when they get up in these games because of their good defense. They're going to be able to rely on Harris to get 20, 25 touches. I just think they're a good team. I don't think they're a great team. They're not the 11-0 team that we saw last year, but they're not going to be a barely above 500 or floating around. They're going to be in the playoffs. I have no doubt about it.
I agree. The version of the early team we saw and the late team we saw, it's probably somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
Where that factors with a really good division, that's probably the hardest part for me is what will those teams around them do, right? I kind of know what Pittsburgh is. That's assuming, of course, with Roethlisberger, you have to try to factor that in. Can he stay upright, which is always a fascinating prop bet in itself. I think it'd be very, very interesting to see. Now, let's get back to the Marcus Mosher sweet spot, to the swag, the logo on his chest, literally right now. Cowboys plus 110 to win the division. I'm going to say right now, Marcus, I like this. I like this a lot. We talked about the NFC East just being this gross mosh pit last year. I don't believe in Jalen Hurts yet. I don't believe in the Giants. I think Washington is a really interesting team, but I'm not there with them offensively yet. I like this a lot, assuming Dak is healthy, and I'd go to you. Is Dak healthy? And I'm sure that's going to impact what you think of this line.
Yeah, I mean, Dak could play a football game right now if he needed to, just to kind of show you where he's at. He'll be fine, but when the regular season gets here. Adam, how many wins do we think the Cowboys are going to need to get to win this division? If I set the over-under at 8.5, what would you say?
I'd say you need more. And again, I'm really goofed up with the 17 game schedule. By the way, it's going to take a full 6 months to scope in that 11 wins now is not a phenomenal year. It's a good year, right? Yep. I think you're going to need 10 wins. What do you think? You're going a little below that probably.
I just come back to I don't trust any of the quarterbacks in the division. And listen, I know Ryan Fitzpatrick is with Washington, and that defense is really good. But there's a reason why all these teams have moved on from Ryan Fitzpatrick, and there's a reason why he always gets benched at some point during the season is because teams kind of catch up to him, right? Fitzmagic only lasts so long. It's not built for a 17-game schedule. So I do think if the Cowboys can get to 9, 10 wins for sure, they're winning this division. And again, the middle part of their schedule is really, really easy. I don't think it's all that difficult. And if you're giving me them at plus 110 to win the division, I'm not being a homer here at all. I just think that's fantastic value.
I agree. Although I have to say, while you were talking, I just went down this, I won't call it a dark rabbit hole, where Ryan Fitzpatrick is surrounded by a really pretty good team. Some good offensive players, a great defense. What if, Marcus? Like, what if this is – because normally it's just him bearding his way through mediocrity and having some big games and throwing interceptions. But what if, right? What if this is it for him? And don't even get
believe it.
Oh yeah.
Don't believe
Well,
it.
don't even, and I'll say this now that I'm playing my own devil's advocate. Taylor Heineke, my guy, Heineke.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's just,
it wouldn't shock me if he ends up starting more games than Fitzpatrick this year. Because again,
neither.
I think what happens in Fitzpatrick, he's getting older. I think he's 39 years old now. His arm just gets tired and his legs get worn out as the season goes on. And all of a sudden, those YOLO balls have a little bit less juice on them than usual. I would not be surprised if our guy Taylor ends up being the starter here by week 9, week 10.
He is kind of an unofficial mascot of the pod now that Mr. Phillip Rivers has decided to call it quits. Last one, and I don't know how you bet this unless you're going to go the other way. Green Bay minus 163 to win the division. That number, like the week 1 point spread, Marcus, feels a little bit neutered because of the Rodgers situation. What do you do here? Do you wait, or do you say, hey, Detroit actually seems to be getting some buzz with their meat-headed mascot. Minnesota, I'm not doing Chicago. I just, said that their coach is going to get fired. So I don't know where you go with this division. It's a bit of a mess.
Probably the right bet is to bet on Green Bay now at minus 163 because a few weeks ago they were minus 300. I even saw them at DraftKings at minus 350 to win the division. So you're getting a lot of value despite them literally not making a move at all with Aaron Rodgers. The hope is that they can fix something over the offseason. But yeah, I think I just don't feel good about any of the other 3 teams to go anywhere else right now.
Minnesota plus 260. Can I interest you in that at all?
No, their defense is still really bad. And it's Kirk Cousins.
Bears plus 375. No. Detroit 20-1.
They have by far the worst wide receiver room in the entire NFL, and they have Jared Goff as their quarterback. No thanks.
So that was a hard no. I'm going to get on the Campbell meathead wagon at some point too. I want a piece of that action, and I'm not sure how.
We're going to talk about how many beers in a second. We need to have a segment. How many beers to take the Lions to win the division? Because that's a big number right there.
Man, it would be a lot. But I wonder what happens then, though, if Rodgers is traded. I mean, Green Bay's probably still the favorite, no? But it's instead of minus 163, it's minus 110. I mean, it's probably very, very neck and neck at that point.
It probably starts to look like what we just talked about at the NFC East, where you have, like Dallas's favorite at plus 110. You'll probably have something with that, like the Vikings, and then everybody else kind of just pushed together all around the same odds. It's not great. And I think the NFL is really, really hoping that doesn't happen because all of a sudden that NFC North becomes, the worst division in football to watch.
See, we're starting to go back to our new name of take the points. We're not just jumping at every chalk.